we want to do a little bit of over under reaction and a little bit of recap from the year. It's not going to be long because there's some more season to play, but let's take a moment and see if we can at least reflect. We remember we spent every week for the last previous 17 weeks always coming back saying what is an over and under reaction for the season. And now that the season has concluded for our guys and is on the verge of maybe a couple more games for our ladies to see how far they can go, what are some over and under reactions that you want to share with the folks and the fans here? Who'd like to go first?
It's gonna be scary. Gonna be scary. All right, everybody's quiet. I'll jump out. I'll jump out in the lake first.
Okay.
So I got asterisks to this overreaction.
Wow.
But assuming everybody comes back,
okay, that's asterisk.
Next year's team is going to be way better than this team. It's the crop coming in and everybody coming back that's eligible to come back. Just because, KB said that this was his best team ever this year before the injuries. Before the injuries, he said this was the best team. But I'm saying, I'm looking at who we got coming in and who could possibly stay next year. Next year is gonna be that's gonna be the one.
That's the kind of opening I would look for from you. Your gift for hyperbole is unparalleled. It's unparalleled. There's not a subtle take in anything you just said right now. Okay. All right. Let me see if I can add to the level of hyperbolic levels you're getting to right here. So I would say that in looking back on the season, I'm glad we were right about the impact of some of the key players that you speak of, right? So Blake Harper winning Player of the Year and Rookie of the Year. We said that. We said there was no reason why he shouldn't, because
actually, Brian, I give you your flowers, because that was one of your earlier overreactions. We saw Rookie of the Year. That was a no-brainer.
Right.
But when you said he was going to be Player of the Year, I was like, I don't know. I mean, it's going to be tight. But
the press for him picked up at the right time. This is a narrative more than it is the scoring stats and all that stuff, and even your team winning. For him to go from a 0-star recruit and a towel boy to a star player, I mean, who doesn't love a good story of comeuppance, right? So that's where you're saying, hey, this guy came out of nowhere and became a star. But here's the deal. Here's where I go hyperbolic with you. I believe that we will have not only a better team, but we'll be playing for the chip. We're going to play for the chip. Like, not just a better team, but we're going to play for the championship. We'll be there. The men's team will be there, and the women's team will be back in the chip next year, because both teams will reload, and we will be back. Championship Saturday will be Howard Championship Saturday in 2026. So that's my hyperbolic. That's my hyperbolic piece right here.
Well, I usually don't get on those kind of bandwagons, but I think I'm gonna one up both of you guys this time, because in some of my preparation, I watched a lot of coaches' interviews, Coach KB's interviews, and I rewatched his interview with Clark Kellogg. And so Clark Kellogg started asking him, well, what is your vision? What do you see? And he started talking about, beyond everything we're talking about right now. And I said to myself, yeah, why can't we win the national championship? Forget the MEAC championship. Why we can't win the national championship?
I like it.
I said, yeah.
I like it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, think about it, Chip. You brought up the Gonzaga analogy and this and that, and blah, blah, blah. I mean, I thought about, I'm going to go back to my DI reference when they started asking Shedeur Sanders, well, how are you in a position to say, what you're going to do in the league? This and that. He said, hey, man, I've already rebuilt 2 programs. Well, hey, man, we've already had an NBA player.
Mm-hmm.
You know, why not, man? Why not?
Hey, I'm with you. I'm with you. And I want to piggyback on my own overreaction because I think
let's go higher. Let's go higher.
No. I think the women's team and the men's team with who we got coming in,
yeah,
and who will stick around will be even better. And the hype for this year's women's team was off the charts. But next year, next year, and I would encourage Bison Nation, you can go back to, I think it's episode 6. Go back to this episode. That's when we recapped all of the commits coming to Howard. You check that out.
Okay.
Check that out, and you will see why my overreaction is really not an overreaction. Because to Eric's point, both the men and the women's team I see making a run in the NCAA tournament. So I'm with you.
I'm so proud of the reveal of your DNA. I was worried that some of the laughing gas that Eric has access to, he had taken a hit on just before he got on air here, because there's levels to this stuff. What I can say is that maybe there's an opportunity for us to see the caliber of players that would make it even possible for us to compete for the national championship coming our way, because again, the climate is telling us that people can go somewhere for their talent but not their whole person. And if we can figure out how to compete with our collectives and NIL, there's an opportunity for us to attract a mix of players. I remember when Kerry Davis first started his stint as athletic director, he said, we're always only a couple of players away from making a splash in the tournament. So if we can figure out how to get a nucleus of 3 to 4 guys who can play, or even with your reference early in the season, Chip, where you said we should be modeled more like South Carolina and our women's team, getting the best of the best talent to come to Howard doesn't seem like a stretch if we put the resources behind it, right? So it's all resource driven. So I don't think it's a matter of just the players and even the coaches who are talented enough to do it. It is an infrastructure problem. And if we can solve that, we have a chance, because all we have to do is say, how do we invest in that infrastructure? That's also part of why we do this podcast, because we know that we can help influence who supports the infrastructure. So as long as we still have some gaps in supporting infrastructure, I may not be able to leap all the way to the national championship, but we should be perennially playing in the tournament. But I understand now.
I'm gonna go.
I was going to say what I was going to tell you is that there is a math thing that happens every time we win our conference tournament, where we won it the first time, we got a certain amount of money, and we won it the second time, we got double that amount. And if we had won it a third time, it would have been quadruple. So there's a monetary benefit for winning the conferences we're in repeatedly. And that's what helps us build some of the infrastructure we need for the program as well. So I'm with you. You all jumped way out there. I love these. This is like,
hey, and
we didn't play for the championship. We didn't play for the championship, but we could.
I'm gonna throw one more at you, B. I'm gonna go to your state. I'm gonna go to your state of Indiana.
Okay.
And we gonna remember Butler almost beat Duke. Let's not forget.
I do. I remember that.
Butler.
I remember that.
And then they went back after they lost Gordon Hayward, which gets back to the theme. Mm-hmm. They lost Gordon Hayward and went back to the national championship. So
they did.
Hey, why not, man?
That's my guy right there.
That's
my guy right there. I like that. I like that type of thinking right there.
It took an entire podcast season to get there, but he's finally opened it up.
Yes.
So are there any other underreactions before we wrap up today's show? Because We got overcovered. We got overcovered. Any underreactions to share with the fans of Bison Nation?
You know, it's kind of hard to have an underreaction after those overreactions. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll start with one, and if that's the only one, we'll leave it with that. And this is my appeal. This is my look into the camera moment, and this is not for any of our players. So, Anwar, relax. Dom, relax. OKK, relax. Right. This is really an appeal to those that are listeners of the show and those who share the show, those we like to call members of Bison Nation. I mentioned early in the show that my trip down to Norfolk was my third in a row. And each time I was going earlier and earlier so that I could get a better feel for what the tournament experience had to offer. And so as a basketball fan, mentioned very early, every game in the men's bracket was basically down to the last possession. So if you like quality basketball, you got a chance to experience that. The highs and the lows, because every game came down to a last second shot. For the ladies, you got a chance to see what it meant to be purely dominant, not only for our conference play, but all season long. And so you had a chance to see what happens when you have consistent investment in playing well from a basketball perspective. The challenge I have, the underreaction is Bison Nation, we have to travel. And
That's right.
I don't know what's going to take for us to get to the point where, Chip, with one of your alma maters, Kentucky, when they play, they bring bus loads and RV loads of fans to wherever they're going to play. And you know they're there because you start seeing all the colors as they're coming into town, the flags, the little, tailgate areas, anything that you can have kind of kicks in, right? And so for me, I'm telling Bison Nation that while there had been some complaints about us being in Norfolk, and because it's an unfair advantage to Norfolk State on paper, I submit to you that no place we go is a destination problem. We had more people go to Des Moines, Iowa, than we've had consistently go to Burr. So when we're thinking about it, when the lights are the brightest, we seem to show up. We need to be in the building every game. We need to have a section where people know we're here, and it needs to be so packed in there that they actually got to pay attention to what seat you have, because that's how many people come in. So my underreaction is that when I was hanging out with our ladies team and they had just won a very convincing semifinal game. And after the game, they were outside waiting to go get on their bus so they could head back to the hotel. My wife and I were the only fans that were out there that weren't related to the team. And the sadder part for us, and this is where we're starting from, this is why we started the podcast, is most of our teams who travel all around, they barely see anybody besides their parents, don't believe they're ever going to really see fans. They don't know that we even exist. That's why when we do this and people say, can I come on the podcast? You guys really love us. That's why this is an important thing that we're doing, because people realize there are fans that are willing to talk about the sports people participate in. Basketball just happens to be the love of those of us on the show. But my underreaction for the season is that we do not have a destination problem when it comes to going to games. We just have a Bison Nation problem. We need to ensure that before we start talking big, before we worry about winning a national championship, we need to fill up some butts and seats. We need to be present.
That's what's
they need to hear us. They need to see us. They need to know that they have fans that they can count on being there to support them, whether it's at Burr or in the Berg, Orangeburg, South Carolina, because that's a place that people don't travel to unless they have to. We need to be everywhere. So that's my underreaction.
Amen. Amen.
Okay.
Yeah.
And like I said,
there is nothing else to say. There is.
That's why we do what we do, and it's because we know that for everything we see that's a possibility for success, a big part of that is infrastructure, and that's not just good meals and workout facilities and sleeping facilities on campus, right? It's knowing that you got a game that's going to be packed out and your crowd is actually a part of the game. Like, people should be nervous to come to the Burr because that's how loud we are. And they know that when they come in here, they got to play their best game because we just going to rattle them because that's how much we do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt.
All right. Well,
So
you really make me want to take a little personal moment, man, because I'm gonna shout out my youngest son, Asa, man. He's not a basketball player, but because both of my kids have had played football in high school, I was afforded the opportunity to participate in the booster club, to your point, B.
mm-hmm.
And to go to all of these different schools and to see how fired up people get to talk about the coaches and complain about this, that, and the third, but then you don't see that level of support when it's time to financially support them, to give of your time and talent. It's easy to backseat drive and criticize and this and that. And so I appreciate what you're saying, because it's really a lesson for us on all levels. For those of you who are really paying attention, that's a behavior we can emulate in all walks of life, because those kids are watching. And to your point, I don't even like saying the name, but I want to say I was in Ross, but I hope I wasn't in Target. Right. And a young man approached me while I was getting ready to check out. And I was like, man, where do I know this kid from? And he said, Mr. Washington, I'm on the football team. Because you there passing out the meals, you come to all the games. I said, wow, these kids are really paying attention to what we do. So you are spot on. And what the reason I brought my son up, because he wants to go to Howard, and I want him to have the penultimate experience. I don't want him to have the disappointment experience. You know what I mean? So you right on it, man. You right on it, B Smooth.
I appreciate that, brother.
Right on.
And you did use penultimate, so that's bonus points there.